vanishing in a swirl of leaves. Danzo paced the floor, his cane clicking against the wood. Why would Fugaku invite rival Kage here, Hiruzen? Is he attempting to forge a military alliance? Is he planning to defect and relocate the clan to the cloud or the stone? No, Hiruzen said slowly, his eyes dark. My spies tell me it is because of the alcohol. Alcohol? Homura asked, confused. Along with the invitations, the Uchiha sent out samples of 3 brand new, highly potent spirits that have never been seen in the elemental nations. My intelligence suggests the distillation process is revolutionary, producing perfectly clear spirits. The Kage are not here for war, Danzo. They are here to negotiate massive, exclusive trade deals for that alcohol. Danzo stopped pacing. A vicious, ugly look crossed his face.
If the Uchiha secure international export contracts with the other great nations, their wealth will multiply exponentially. They will completely eclipse the village treasury. We cannot allow those deals to go through, Hiruzen. I agree, Hiruzen murmured, his eyes locking on to his old friend. But we cannot attack them directly. We must destroy the product from the inside. Danzo smiled coldly. The Uchiha are offering these drinks for free to the public, are they not? What if a few civilian patrons were to suddenly fall violently ill after consuming this new Uchiha rum? What if a rumor spread through the foreign delegations that the Uchiha alchemists used cheap, toxic industrial runoff in their fermentation process?
If a prominent merchant or a foreign diplomat were to witness such an incident, Koharu added, catching on to the dark scheme, the Kage would never sign the export contracts. The Uchiha's international reputation would be ruined before it had begun. Hiruzen sat back in his chair, picking up his pipe. He struck a match, the flame illuminating his hardened, unforgiving eyes. See to it, Danzo, Hiruzen commanded quietly. Ensure the Uchiha's grand opening ends in a disaster they cannot buy their way out of.
Just as Danzo and Hiruzen finalized their sabotage plan, another Anbu operative burst into the Hokage's office. Before the operative could even drop to one knee, Hiruzen sighed, rubbing his temples. Let me guess, another Kage has arrived at the gates. But the Anbu shook his head rapidly. No, Lord Hokage. Both Hiruzen and Danzo frowned. Then what is it? Lord Hokage, the Anbu panted, his voice trembling. The Fire Daimyo has arrived at the village gates, and he is being personally escorted by Uchiha Shisui and Uchiha Itachi. Hiruzen shot up from his chair. What? The feudal lord of the Land of Fire had come in person.
Hiruzen didn't wait. He vanished from his office in a burst of speed, leaving a stunned Danzo behind. Seconds later, Hiruzen materialized near the massive wooden gates of Konoha. The gate guards panicked, instantly drawing their weapons to shield the Hokage, but Hiruzen waved them off. Is the daimyo here? Hiruzen demanded. The guard captain nodded nervously, pointing outside the gates. Hiruzen quickly stepped out. Standing in the dirt, surrounded by his royal guards and the 2 Uchiha Parabijis, the Fire Daimyo looked hot, dusty, and incredibly irritated. As soon as the daimyo spotted the Hokage, his face flared red with anger. Hiruzen, how long do you expect me to wait out here? Need I remind you who keeps this village running? Hiruzen's face darkened slightly at the public reprimand, but he immediately forced a warm, apologetic smile. My deepest apologies, Lord Daimyo. I was personally overseeing the preparations for your security. That is why I was delayed. I have 7 elite Anbu operatives ready to escort you through the village. The daimyo waved a dismissive, jeweled hand. No need. I have these 2 Uchiha boys. They are more than enough. Hiruzen glanced back at Shisui and Itachi. He felt a sharp sting of displeasure that the daimyo trusted Uchiha over the Hokage's Anbu, but he swallowed his pride and bowed his head. Very well, Lord Daimyo, Hiruzen said smoothly. Please, come in. Let us proceed to the Uchiha compound. The daimyo looked surprised. You are coming with me? Of course, my lord. Your security is my utmost priority, Hiruzen replied, his voice hardening slightly as he shot a warning glance at Shisui and Itachi. I cannot allow you to be kidnapped. Both Shisui and Itachi's faces darkened at the thinly veiled insult, but they remained silent. As the group began to walk through the gates, a cheerful voice called out to them. Esteemed guests, over here. A young Uchiha Genin jogged up to them, gesturing toward a sleek, beautifully crafted vehicle parked just inside the walls. Please sit in the carriage. You do not have to walk. The Uchiha district is quite far from the gates. The daimyo stopped, his eyes lighting up as he took in the vehicle. It was a luxurious 2-wheeled rickshaw, painted in rich crimson and gold, with plush velvet seats and a collapsible silk canopy. How beautiful, the daimyo praised, running a hand over the polished wood. Who made this? The Uchiha Genin smiled proudly. It was designed by the Uchiha clan, my lord. It is built specifically for civilians, merchants, and nobles who cannot travel long distances quickly on foot. The daimyo caught something. He frowned, looking around.
Wait, too far? What do you mean by that? As far as I know, the Uchiha are the founding clan of Konoha. Your ancestral lands are the center of the village, just up the street. The Uchiha Genin's smile faltered. He glanced nervously at the Hokage for a split second before looking down. I do not know, my lord. The clan leader simply told us one day that we had to move to the very edge of the village, so that is where we live now. The daimyo wasn't stupid. He sensed the sudden suffocating political tension radiating from Hiruzen Sarutobi and decided not to press the issue. Well, the daimyo clapped his hands together, changing the subject. How do we get in?
Right here, my lord, the Genin said, lowering a small wooden step. The daimyo climbed in, sinking into the incredibly soft red cushions with a contented sigh. The Uchiha Genin then looked at the Hokage. Lord Third, you may get in as well. Hiruzen gave a curt nod and climbed up beside the daimyo. Akira hadn't been able to build an internal combustion engine, but he knew how to design a modern carriage chassis, complete with advanced suspension springs. For power, he simply used the shinobi themselves. A ninja could pull a rickshaw infinitely faster and smoother than a horse. The Uchiha Genin picked up the front poles of the rickshaw. Shisui, Itachi, and the daimyo's royal guards vanished into the shadows to escort them from the rooftops. With a sudden burst of chakra, the Genin took off. The daimyo gasped, gripping the armrests, but to his absolute shock, the ride was perfectly smooth. There were no bumps, no rattling wheels, and no jarring impacts. Incredible! The daimyo marveled. How are we going so fast without feeling the bumps of the dirt roads? The Uchiha Genin called back over his shoulder. Because we are not on dirt, my lord. It is because of the road. The daimyo looked confused. The road?
Yes, the Genin replied. The surface beneath our wheels is called asphalt. It is extremely durable and perfectly flat. Because our clan was relocated so far from the gates, our clan leader knew merchants would hate the long, bumpy walk, so he spent a fortune paving a direct, smooth route from the gates straight to our compound. The Genin grinned. For a normal civilian walking through the village streets, it takes over an hour to reach our lands. But on this road, with this cart, we will be there in 15 minutes. Only 15 minutes? Hiruzen blurted out, genuinely shocked. Even a trained chunin running on foot through the crowded village streets would take at least 30 minutes to cross that distance. Hiruzen leaned over the side of the cart, staring down at the sleek black pavement rolling beneath the wheels. Is it because of this strange black stone? He wondered. Exactly 15 minutes later, the rickshaw glided to a smooth halt outside the towering gates of the new Uchiha compound. Fugaku stood waiting for them, flanked by his honor guard. The Hokage and the daimyo stepped down from the cart. Magnificent! The daimyo laughed, clapping his hands. I didn't feel a single bump, and we are already here. This carriage is wonderful. Fugaku bowed deeply.
I am glad it pleased you, Lord Daimyo. When you return to the capital, please take a fleet of these carriages. They are a gift from the Uchiha. The daimyo's eyes sparkled with greed. Truly? Well, I suppose I will have to be a little shameless and accept. The feudal lord laughed heartily. Standing to the side, Hiruzen's face darkened with envy. Why didn't he offer one to the Hokage? Pushing down his annoyance, Hiruzen looked at Fugaku and pointed to the black pavement. Fugaku, these black roads, can we pave the entire village with this material? Fugaku almost coughed up blood.
The entire village, Lord Hokage? Fugaku asked, shaking his head. This asphalt is an experimental technology developed by the Uchiha. It is incredibly labor-intensive. Every 100 meters of this road cost us 10 million ryo. The 8-kilometer stretch from the gates to our compound alone cost almost 800 million ryo. Hiruzen's jaw practically dropped. 800 million ryo just for a flat road? Just this single road cost us 800 million, Fugaku smiled thinly. I am afraid the village does not have the budget to pave the entire village. Hiruzen stared at the black pavement, completely dumbfounded. Then why did you build it, Fugaku? If it is so devastatingly costly, why waste the money? Fugaku remembered a quote Akira had told him in the Naka Shrine months ago. He looked the Hokage dead in the eye and delivered the line flawlessly. Because, Lord Hokage, Fugaku said, his voice ringing with absolute confidence, in business, connectivity is the ultimate weapon. Hiruzen looked confused, completely failing to grasp the modern economic concept. He opened his mouth to ask further, but Fugaku smoothly cut him off. But enough about roads, Fugaku said, turning his warm diplomatic smile back to the feudal lord. Lord Daimyo, please, let us go inside. You have waited long enough. As the heavy gates of the Uchiha compound swung open, the daimyo and the Hokage stepped inside. Instantly, they stopped dead in their tracks. From a distance, the new Uchiha district looked impressive, but standing at the base of the massive glass and steel structures was an entirely different experience. The sheer, terrifying scale of the architecture hit them like a physical blow. The buildings loomed over them, their polished windows reflecting the sunlight in blinding flashes. Hiruzen craned his neck, looking up at the towering monoliths. A sudden, instinctual knot of fear formed in his stomach. "Fugaku," Hiruzen asked, his voice tight, "are you absolutely certain these structures will not collapse?" Fugaku's face darkened slightly at the insult, but he forced a polite smile. "I can assure you they are perfectly safe, Lord Hokage. They are anchored deep into the bedrock." Fugaku turned away from Hiruzen, focusing entirely on the feudal lord. He pointed toward the center of the district. "Lord Daimyo, look at that structure." The daimyo followed Fugaku's finger and gasped. Standing in the heart of the compound was the 22-story luxury hotel. It was a sheer spire of glass and steel that seemed to pierce the very clouds.
"Gods above," the daimyo whispered, his eyes wide with shock. "How did you build something so massive?" Fugaku smiled, his chest swelling with pride. "That, Lord Daimyo, is officially the tallest building in the entire shinobi world, and at the very top is our grand penthouse suite. Tonight, you will be staying there." The daimyo blinked, turning to Fugaku in disbelief. "Tonight, Lord Daimyo," Fugaku declared smoothly, "you will become the first person in recorded history to spend the night at the absolute highest point in the world. No other feudal lord, no merchant, and no kage has ever slept at that height." Hiruzen's jaw tightened. A sharp, bitter pang of jealousy flared in his chest. He is the Hokage, the man who watched over the village, yet he would not be the first to look down upon it from the clouds. "Me?" The daimyo pointed a trembling finger at himself. "I will be the first person in the world?" "Yes, my lord," Fugaku nodded respectfully. "History may remember you as the first man to live in the sky." The daimyo's face broke into an expression of absolute giddy ecstasy. "Incredible! Take me there at once, Fugaku. I want to see the inside."
"Right this way," Fugaku replied, gesturing toward the hotel. As they walked, Fugaku's mind flashed back to a conversation he'd had with Akira weeks earlier in the Naka Shrine. "Make absolutely certain the fire daimyo stays in the penthouse on opening night," Akira had instructed, sliding a blueprint across the table. "Why?" Fugaku had asked. "It is our finest suite. Shouldn't we charge a fortune for it?" "Because, clan leader, this is what we call marketing," Akira had replied with a wicked grin. "When the other daimyos and kage hear that the Lord of Fire slept in the sky, what will their pride force them to do?" "They will come here and demand to stay there as well," Fugaku realized. "Exactly. And what happens when a wealthy civilian merchant books that room after them?" asked Akira. "Precise. Won't that merchant feel like a daimyo for a night? The prestige will be intoxicating. The waiting list for that suite will be booked solid for the next 10 years. We will charge whatever we want." Fugaku had felt completely enlightened by the young elder's terrifying business acumen. Back in the present, the group reached the base of the 22-story hotel. The daimyo craned his neck all the way back, his hat nearly falling off as he stared up at the peak. He swallowed hard, his excitement suddenly mixing with dread. "Please tell me we do not have to walk up the stairs." Fugaku chuckled softly. "No, my lord. Please step inside." Fugaku led them through the grand lobby to the elevator. He pressed the glowing call button. With a soft ding, the polished metal doors slid open. The daimyo and the Hokage stared skeptically at the small, enclosed metal box, but they followed Fugaku inside. As soon as the door shut, Fugaku pressed the button for the 22nd floor. The elevator gave a sudden lurch and began accelerating upward. "Whoa!" the daimyo yelped. Panicking, he grabbed the metal handrail on the wall. "Fugaku, the room is shaking!" Hiruzen also stiffened, his hand dropping instinctively to his kunai pouch. He flared his senses, searching for a genjutsu, but he felt absolutely no chakra. Fugaku remained perfectly calm. He pointed to the transparent glass wall at the back of the elevator. "Look, Lord Daimyo, we are simply moving up." The daimyo slowly turned his head, his breath caught in his throat. Through the glass, he watched the village of Konoha shrink beneath him. The Hokage monument, the dense forests, and the civilian rooftops spread out like a miniature map. Am I flying?" the daimyo whispered in awe. "I can see the entire village."
Before they could fully process the view, the elevator smoothly decelerated and came to a halt. The doors slid open with a soft chime. "We have arrived, Lord Daimyo," Fugaku announced. "What? Already?" the daimyo gasped, stepping out into a lavishly carpeted hallway. He looked back at the metal box. "What kind of incredible ninjutsu is this, Fugaku-san?" Hiruzen also looked on expectantly, completely baffled by the frictionless, chakraless ascension. "It is called an elevator," Fugaku explained smoothly. "It operates on a complex mechanical pulley system, meaning it requires no chakra. Even a civilian can operate it simply by pressing a button." The daimyo looked profoundly impressed. "Is that so? The Uchiha truly are brilliant." Fugaku smiled, leading them down the hallway until they reached a set of massive, intricately carved double doors. "Lord Daimyo," Fugaku announced, gesturing to the massive double doors. "This is it." Fugaku pushed the heavy doors open. The moment the daimyo and the Hokage stepped across the threshold, they felt as though they had walked into an entirely different dimension. The grand penthouse suite was staggering. A massive, open-concept living area stretched out before them, surrounded by glass windows that offered an unobstructed panoramic view of the entire village and the distant mountains. "My lord," Fugaku said, walking to the center of the room, "we are currently standing at the highest architectural point in the world. You can watch the sun rise over the elemental nations from this very spot." The daimyo hurried to the glass, his eyes wide as he looked down at the tiny ant-like figures of the villagers far below. Fugaku led them through the suite, pointing out the modern amenities Akira had insisted upon. "Through here is the bathing chamber. The porcelain tub is fully automated using advanced water and lightning-style sealing formulas. You simply lay down, press a button on the wall, and the water will heat and circulate automatically." Then Fugaku gestured to the sleek sliding doors. "Furthermore, you do not even need to open the doors yourself. They are rigged with proximity seals. They will part automatically as you approach." The daimyo gasped as the doors seamlessly slid open on their own. He stepped inside, staring at the massive, cloud-like mattress dominating the center of the room. "This, Lord Daimyo," Fugaku said proudly, "is the most comfortable bed in the world. The mattress is woven with specialized chakra-conductive threading that retains ambient heat and provides perfect lumbar support. Sleeping on it for a single night will completely cure chronic back pain." The daimyo's eyes instantly lit up. "What? It can cure my back pain? I have had every royal physician in the capital searching for a remedy for years." The feudal lord looked at the pristine white sheets with such intense longing that he seemed ready to dive face first onto the mattress right then and there. "You may retire whenever you wish, my lord," Fugaku chuckled softly. "But there is still much of the district to see if you have the energy." The daimyo tore his eyes away from the bed, his excitement renewing. "Yes, of course. Lead the way, Fugaku-san." Minutes later, they descended from the sky and walked across the bustling commercial district to the Uchiha Grand Casino. The moment they stepped through the gilded entrance, the sensory overload hit them. The massive, high-ceilinged hall was bathed in warm, golden light. Hundreds of wealthy patrons and visiting shinobi were crowded around velvet-lined tables, the air filled with the clinking of chips, the scent of expensive cigars, and the low hum of excited conversation. "Fugaku," the daimyo laughed, clapping his hands together. "Let us play." Fugaku smiled, though his eyes gleamed with anticipation. "Right this way, Lord Daimyo." They headed straight for the high roller tables in the back. Fugaku loved the new game Akira had introduced, Uchiha Poker. It was a game tailor-made for his clan. The Uchiha were born proud and stoic. Maintaining a cold, unreadable expression was practically written into their DNA. It was no wonder the game carried the Uchiha name. They approached the grand exchange counter. The young Uchiha receptionist immediately straightened her posture, bowing deeply. "Clan leader, Lord Hokage, Lord Daimyo." Fugaku waved a hand. "Prepare 1 million ryo in high-denomination chips for the daimyo, please." The receptionist blinked in shock at the massive sum, but quickly nodded. She pulled out a heavy stack of sleek obsidian and gold chips and placed them respectfully in front of the feudal lord. "Compliments of the house, my lord," said Fugaku smoothly. Fugaku then reached into his own robes, pulling out a thick, bound stack of bills. He placed exactly 1 million ryo in cash on the counter, and 1 million in chips for myself, please. The receptionist took the cash, counted it rapidly, and slid an identical stack of chips to her clan leader. Under Akira's strict new corporate laws, even the clan head could not simply take money from the casino's vault. Every chip had to be accounted for in the master ledger to prevent embezzlement and inflation. The only exception were diplomatic comps for VIPs like the daimyo. Hiruzen stepped up to the counter, casually crossing his arms, fully expecting the receptionist to slide a complimentary stack of chips his way as well. He waited. The receptionist simply looked at him, offering a polite, expectant smile. She didn't move.
Hiruzen frowned. He glanced at Fugaku. "Lord Hokage," Fugaku said, his tone perfectly polite but utterly unyielding. Tapping his own chips, "You must exchange your Rio for chips here. As you can see, even I must pay to play." Reading the play, seething internally, Hiruzen's face tightened. He looked at the daimyo's complimentary chips, immediately realizing the political play. Fugaku was blatantly currying favor with the feudal lord while forcing the Hokage to empty his own pockets. Damn this arrogant, stingy clan, Hiruzen thought bitterly. Masking his irritation, Hiruzen unsealed his pouch, pulled out a stack of bills, and begrudgingly bought 1 million Rio worth of chips. With their chips in hand, Fugaku led them to a private VIP table in the center of the room. As they approached, they realized the table was already occupied by an absurdly powerful roster of players. Sitting around the green felt were the 3rd Tsuchikage, Onoki, the 4th Raikage, and the 4th Kazekage, Rasa. "Do you gentlemen mind if we join you?" Fugaku asked smoothly. The massive 4th Raikage slammed his fist onto the table, his face flushed with frustration. He glared up at Fugaku. "Fugaku, you bastard!" the Raikage barks, gesturing wildly at the cards. "Who the hell invented this maddening game?" The Raikage pointed a thick, accusing finger at the tiny, floating form of Onoki across the table. "Why is this old fossil winning every single hand?" Fugaku chuckled softly as he, the daimyo, and the Hokage took their seats. "In Uchiha poker, Lord Raikage," Fugaku said, elegantly stacking his chips, "you must learn to control your emotions." On the other side of the bustling shopping district, Naruto wore an expression of pure, unadulterated joy, a rare sight for the young boy. For the first time in his life, he wasn't just tolerated, he was treated like absolute royalty. His arms were already weighed down with multiple heavy shopping bags. At first, he had merely walked into the stores just to look around, but the moment the shopkeepers recognized him, they dropped whatever they were doing to give him their utmost priority. It was all because of the card. The Uchiha clan had minted only 10 exclusive VIP cards in existence, and miraculously, the very first one had been gifted to Naruto. The merchants and clan members didn't know the exact reasoning behind the clan leader's decision, but the mandate was crystal clear: treat this child with the same respect as the head of the clan. The perks of the VIP card were staggering. Word had spread that a holder could acquire anything they desired in any quantity, absolutely free of charge for the rest of their life. The card could even be passed down to their descendants. Furthermore, the cardholder had the right to summon a protective escort of 10 elite Uchiha Jonin at any time, a massive perk that Naruto was entirely oblivious to. Naturally, the few people who knew about the card were bitterly jealous and desperately wished they had one of their own. Spotting a nearby dango stall, Naruto's stomach rumbled. Juggling his shopping bags, he happily joined the queue behind a group of kunoichi. As soon as they moved forward, Naruto stepped up to the counter. "Can I have some?" he asked with a bright grin. "That'll be 20 Rio," the shopkeeper replied, handing over a fresh, warm skewer of dango. Naruto nodded, shifted his bags, and reached into his jacket. He pulled out the gleaming golden VIP card and presented it. The shopkeeper's eyes bulged in shock. A VIP of the Uchiha clan! The man's surprise quickly melted into a sheepish, highly respectful smile. "Ah, you don't have to pay," he stuttered politely. "Thank you for your patronage." Naruto's smile widened as he walked away, happily munching on his sweet dango. "Everything here is really free," he thought, a warm feeling blossoming in his chest. "What an amazing place. No one is glaring at me. No one is trying to avoid me or chase me away like they do in the village." For the first time, he felt truly welcome. Man, this is the best place ever. Naruto wasn't the only one enjoying the district. Children and heirs from all the major clans were scattered throughout the bustling streets, taking full advantage of the amenities. Walking together, Shikamaru Nara and Shoji Akamichi were taking in the sights. Choji was happily devouring a bag of fried food. "Man, Shikamaru, this place is the absolute best," Choji mumbled through a mouthful of fries. Earnestly, "They have so much good stuff to eat here." Shikamaru nodded lazily, hands tucked into his pockets. "Yeah, the Uchiha really outdid themselves.
It's like they built a place straight out of the future.
Their path was briefly blocked as two heavily intoxicated men stumbled past, leaning on one another for support. Shikamaru clicked his tongue in annoyance. Damn drunks. What a drag. They're really drinking in the middle of the day? I heard the alcohol is free here, Choji noted, grabbing another handful of food. Shikamaru just sighed, and the duo moved forward without another word. Elsewhere, the area was teeming with life. Kiba Inuzuka, the Hyuga children, and the Aburame heirs were out having fun with their respective clan members. The district had something for everyone. Some were sampling exotic foods, others were buying high-end clothes and cutting-edge weapons, while some were simply relaxing at the luxurious spas.
The women of Konoha had discovered a new obsession, the beauty parlors. A massive, eager line snaked outside the most popular salon, while nearby cosmetic and jewelry stores were packed with thrilled customers. At a quiet outdoor cafe, Asuma Sarutobi sat with his girlfriend, enjoying a perfect, peaceful date. Smiling across the table, he realized he was having the best day of his life. The lively atmosphere continued unabated as the afternoon sky shifted into brilliant hues of orange and purple. Soon, the sun dipped below the horizon, and the clock struck 7 p.m., ushering the vibrant Uchiha district into its bustling nightlife. As evening fell, a massive wave of people began moving toward the newly built sports complex.
"Hey, hurry up," a man shouted to his friends, picking up his pace. "If we don't walk faster, we won't be able to find a single seat." Rumors had spread like wildfire that all the top singers and dancers from across the elemental nations had been gathered to perform in one place. By the time the crowd poured into the massive stadium, the stands were already packed to the brim. The air vibrated with the thumping bass of loud, energetic music. Up in the exclusive VIP section, the third Hokage looked out over the sea of cheering people. How many people are visiting this place today? He thought, his eyes wide. Stunned silence. Beside him, the fire daimyo and the visiting kages from other villages sat in stunned silence, completely overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the event. Soon, the lights dimmed, and the main event began. A famous female singer stepped out onto the brightly lit stage, her voice ringing out over the roaring crowd. Internally, she was ecstatic. She had never performed for an audience this massive in her entire life. Between the roaring applause and the absolute fortune the Uchiha clan had paid to hire her, it felt like a dream. She and the other performers poured their hearts and souls into the show, singing to their heart's content. The night inside the Uchiha district was nothing short of magical. When the concerts ended, some visitors booked rooms to stay the night, while others reluctantly headed home. But one thing was certain, even more people would flock to the district tomorrow. Later that night, the atmosphere inside the Uchiha compound was electric. Almost every ninja in the clan had gathered in the main assembly hall for an emergency meeting. Instead of their usual tense, brooding demeanor, the room was filled with laughter and bright smiles. Clan members were patting each other on the back, exchanging enthusiastic congratulations. Sitting comfortably in one of the elevated elder seats, Uchiha Akira watched his clansmen with a quiet, satisfied smile. This, he thought to himself, is exactly how the Uchiha clan should have been in the original anime. The room gradually quieted as Fugaku stepped up to the podium to officially begin the meeting. Judging by the sheer size of the crowd today, it is safe to say our grand opening was an overwhelming success, Fugaku announced, his voice ringing with pride. Everyone who walked through our gates was absolutely amazed by the marvel we have built. He turned toward the elder seating. And for that, I want to personally thank Uchiha Akira. Akira stood up gracefully, bowing his head. Clan leader, please, it was the cumulative effort of the entire Uchiha clan that made this possible. Fugaku smiled warmly. Perhaps, but it was because of your brilliant suggestions that we were able to achieve this. Suddenly, a younger Uchiha ninja stood up from the crowd. "Clan leader, while I was patrolling the streets today, I overheard a lot of the villagers talking. Many of them said they actually want to live here now. They said they felt safer inside the Uchiha compound than anywhere else in the village." Soft chuckles and proud smiles rippled through the gathered ninjas. Fugaku nodded in agreement. "It seems that over this past year, our efforts have paid off. We have successfully rebuilt our trust with the villagers." He paused, his expression turning serious but eager. "Now I want to call up the finance minister to report our total sales for today." The finance minister stepped forward. He took a deep breath and spoke loudly so the entire hall could hear. "Clan leader Fugaku, today we made a total of 340 million ryo in sales." A pin-dropped silence fell over the hall, followed by a collective gasp.
Over 300 million? Even Fugaku's eyes widened in shock, doing the math, barely believing it. Over 300 million in a single day? If that's the case, wouldn't we be projected to make around 110 billion Rio in a single year? The crowd buzzed with dizzying excitement. 100 billion Rio. It was an incomprehensible amount of wealth.
Fugaku-san, let's not celebrate too quickly, Akira suddenly interjected, his calm voice cutting through the excitement. All eyes turned to him. Today was opening day, Akira explained practically. The hype was at its peak, which is why we made so much. On a normal day, we will likely only gross around 200 million Rio. Furthermore, you cannot forget our overhead costs. We still have to purchase raw materials, restock inventory, and pay the salaries of our employees. Akira did mental math before continuing. Taking all of that into account, our actual net profit will be around 90 to 100 million Rio per day. In a year, we will only be making around 33 billion Rio in pure profit.
For a second, the room was quiet. Then grins broke out across the crowd again. 33 billion Rio. It was still an astronomically massive sum. The entire construction of the commercial district had cost the clan roughly 40 billion Rio, meaning they would pay off their entire debt in little over a year. More amusingly, the entire yearly operating budget for the Hidden Leaf Village was only around 20 billion Rio. If Hiruzen Sarutobi ever heard Akira use the word only to describe a 33 billion Rio profit, the old Hokage would surely cough up a mouthful of blood. Looking around the room, it was clear every single ninja in the Uchiha clan was incredibly, overwhelmingly pleased. The assembly hall was still buzzing with excitement when Uchiha Akira raised his hand. The room quickly quieted down, all eyes fixed on him. From today onward, Akira announced, his voice carrying clearly across the hall, every Uchiha who works within the commercial compound will receive double their current salary. A collective gasp swept through the room, instantly followed by an eruption of pure joy. Before today, a standard worker's salary was 120,000 Rio. Now, it would be a staggering 240,000 Rio. In the past, Akira had to carefully manage every single coin, but with the massive profits pouring in, money was no longer a concern. Akira glanced over at the clan leader. Fugaku-san, we have the funds to support this, correct? Fugaku smiled broadly and nodded. Yes, we certainly do. Fugaku then stepped forward, his expression turning a bit more authoritative. Now I know exactly what some of you are thinking. Those of you currently serving in the Konoha Military Police Force are probably considering resigning tomorrow to come work in the compound. The police officers in the crowd shifted uncomfortably, their faces falling. They felt incredibly unlucky to be stuck in their high-stress, lower-paying village jobs while their peers were getting rich inside the district. Don't do it, Fugaku warned firmly, because we will not hire you. The village still needs the police force. A wave of profound disappointment washed over the officers. But then, Fugaku's smile returned. However, the clan leader continued, his voice rising, I am authorizing a triple salary for any police force members who are assigned to patrol the perimeter and streets directly surrounding the Uchiha compound. What? Triple? The disappointment vanished in an instant. 300,000 Rio. The officers' faces hardened with absolute determination. They were suddenly ready to patrol the Uchiha district day and night without a single complaint. Furthermore, Fugaku added, we will soon be launching an export company to sell our exclusive Uchiha products to other hidden villages. Anyone who participates in the transport and escort of these goods will receive massive bonus payouts. The Uchiha ninjas threw their fists in the air, cheering at the top of their lungs. That is all for tonight, Fugaku declared. Dismissed. The Uchiha ninjas filed out of the hall, their hearts light and their futures looking brighter than ever. Meanwhile, inside the Hokage Monument Building, the atmosphere couldn't have been more utterly different. The Hokage's office was bathed in deep shadows, illuminated only by the faint moonlight bleeding through the window and the glowing embers of Hiruzen Sarutobi's pipe. Thick, suffocating smoke hung in the air. Sitting on the sofas were the three village elders, Koharu Utatane, Homura Mitokado, and Danzo Shimura. Their faces were twisted with a mixture of bitter jealousy, greed, and paranoia. Are you truly going to just sit there and let the Uchiha hoard this much wealth, Hiruzen? Homura hissed, his hands gripping his cane tight. From our intelligence, they could easily earn 10 billion Rio a year. That is nearly half of the entire village's operating budget. We gave them that land on the outskirts. We have every right to take it back and relocate them somewhere barren. Koharu adjusted her glasses, her eyes cold and calculating. The alcohol they are selling, it's moving like wildfire. It's too popular. I say we declare it a public health hazard. We can claim we suspect they are mixing harmful, addictive substances into the brew. Under the guise of village safety, we will seize their recipes, confiscate their stock, and ban their private sales. From the darkest corner of the room, Danzo's lone visible eye gleamed with pure malice. "You are both thinking too small," Danzo said, his voice a gravelly whisper. "Think about what 10 billion Rio actually means, Hiruzen. If they buy 10 billion Rio worth of detonating tags, they could blow half of Konoha off the map in a single night. This isn't just a business, it is a military threat. We must sanction them, cap their earnings, leave them 5% of the profits to survive, and seize the remaining 95% for the village." Hiruzen exhaled a long plume of smoke, his face hidden in the shadows. His head throbbed. He knew his former teammates were using village security as an excuse to mask their own immense greed. But the dark truth was, Hiruzen wanted those properties under his control too. The Uchiha having complete financial independence terrified him. If they didn't rely on the village's mission desk for income, the Hokage had no leash to control them. But he couldn't just violently seize their assets, not yet. That would spark a civil war. "Patience," Hiruzen finally spoke, his voice low and dangerous. "Directly taking their land will cause an uprising. If we want their empire, we have to slowly bleed them dry." The elders leaned in as Hiruzen laid out the first stage of his plot. "The Uchiha's business relies on foreigners," Hiruzen explained smoothly. "Tourists coming to play at their casinos, buy their goods, and stay in their hotels. Starting tomorrow, the village will implement a mandatory entry toll at the main gates, 1,000 Rio per person for anyone entering Konoha who isn't a resident." Homura blinked. "Just an entry fee?" "Think about the numbers," Hiruzen said, a dark smirk pulling at the corner of his mouth. "At least 20,000 people visited from outside the village today. That is 20 million Rio a day. Even if the flow of tourists reduces drastically over time, we will effortlessly siphon over 7 billion Rio a year directly from their customers, right into our own pockets." The elder's eyes widened in realization. It was parasitic, effortless profit. Homura eagerly nodded. "Brilliant. Let's do it immediately." Hiruzen then slowly turned his gaze toward the shadows, locking eyes with his old rival. "As for you, Danzo," the Hokage ordered, his tone utterly ruthless, "use the Foundation's network to track down the Uchiha supply chains. I want you to quietly buy out every supplier, every farmer, and every merchant they use to procure the ingredients for their alcohol and food." Danzo's lips curled into a wicked, twisted smile as he understood the Hokage's true intention. "We will choke off their raw materials," Hiruzen concluded coldly, his pipe glowing bright red in the dark room. "When they have nothing left to sell, their clan will starve, and their businesses will crumble right into our hands." 2 weeks later, the vibrant, booming atmosphere of the Uchiha commercial district had been suffocated. Inside the main warehouse, the silence was deafening. The massive wooden vats that were supposed to be brewing their famous alcohol sat completely empty. The shelves, once overflowing with exotic foods, high-end clothing, and cutting-edge ninja tools, were stripped bare. In the clan's central meeting room, the heavy air felt like a physical weight. The Uchiha elders sat in utter despair, their previous joy entirely extinguished. Fugaku stared at the financial report on his desk, his eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. The village's sudden entry toll had crippled their tourist traffic overnight. Foreigners were outraged by the exorbitant fees at the gates and simply turned around. But that wasn't the worst of it. Danzo's foundation had acted with ruthless efficiency. Every single farmer, merchant, and supplier the Uchiha relied on for grain, meat, and raw materials had suddenly refused to do business with them. Those who hadn't been bought out had been terrified into submission. The Uchiha's supply chain had been completely decapitated. "We are bleeding money," the finance minister whispered, his voice trembling. "We are paying double salaries to our workers, but we have nothing left to sell. At this rate, we will bankrupt the clan in less than a month."
Fugaku clenched his fist so hard his knuckles turned white. His shouting gun flared to life, spinning furiously with helpless rage. They had built their own livelihood, but the Hokage was strangling it without throwing a single punch. In the center of the desk sat a scroll bearing the Hokage's seal. It was an ultimatum. Hiruzen had graciously offered to resolve the supply chain issues and lower the gate tolls in exchange for the village taking 90% ownership of the Uchiha commercial district and placing all their recipes and businesses under the direct control of the Konoha Council.
It was extortion. It was slavery. But looking around at the exhausted, defeated faces of his clansmen, Fugaku realized the bitter, horrifying truth. They were trapped. If they rebelled, they would be slaughtered as traitors. If they did nothing, they would starve. Fugaku's voice cracked. He swallowed his immense pride, the words tasting like ash in his mouth. We have no other choice. For the survival of the clan, we must compromise. Suddenly, a hand slapped down over Fugaku's wrist. Fugaku looked up in shock. It was Uchiha Akira. Unlike the rest of the room, Akira didn't look defeated. In fact, as he stood in the dim light of the flickering candles, Akira was smiling. It was a dark, chilling, and supremely confident smile. "Akira, what are you doing?" Fugaku asked, his voice strained. "We have no supplies left. We are finished." "Did you honestly believe," Akira began, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous whisper that echoed through the silent room, "that I would build an empire worth billions and not expect the vultures to circle?" The elders looked up, their eyes widening in confusion. Akira calmly took the Hokage's ultimatum scroll, crumpled it up, and tossed it into a nearby brazier. The room watched in stunned silence as the Hokage's demands burned to ash. Hiruzen's greed blinded him. Akira sneered. By putting that ridiculous toll at the gates, he didn't just cut off our customers, he cut off the entire village's economy. Do you think the Akimichi are happy their restaurants are suddenly empty? Do you think the Yamanaka and Inuzuka are pleased that all the tourist money is dried up? Hiruzen is choking every single clan in this village, and they are furious. Akira reached into his robes and pulled out a heavy, pristine scroll sealed with pure gold wax. He slammed it on the table. While they were busy celebrating our supposed downfall, I took a trip, Akira declared, unrolling the massive document. I contacted all the major clan heads who wanted our financial support, and then I paid a personal visit to the Fire Daimyo himself. Fugaku leaned forward, his Sharingan activating in sheer shock as he read the contents of the scroll. It was covered with official stamps and signatures, the Akimichi, the Nara, the Yamanaka, the Hyuga, and at the very bottom, the unmistakable absolute seal of the Fire Daimyo. "Do you know what this is, clan leader?" Akira asked, his grin widening into something triumphant. "This is an official impeachment letter. The daimyo himself has agreed. Hiruzen Sarutobi is destroying Konoha's economy, and he is entirely unfit to lead." A collective gasp echoed through the room. The elders stood up from their seats, the heavy, suffocating despair in the air instantly replaced by an electrifying surge of hope. "We aren't going to fight a bloody civil war, Fugaku-san," Akira continued, his eyes gleaming with sheer ambition. "It is finally time we make an Uchiha the Hokage." The word hung in the air, Hokage, as the gathered Uchiha members fully processed what he was proposing. Utter shock painted their faces. The dream that had been denied to their clan since the founding of the village was suddenly sitting right there on the table. Fugaku stared at the scroll, his heart pounding against his ribs, but a seed of doubt still lingered in his mind. "Akira, even with the daimyo's backing, the transition requires the village's approval. After everything, will the villagers actually support an Uchiha taking the hat?" Internally, Akira was grinning from ear to ear. No one in this world understands the terrifying, brainwashing power of 21st century advertising. Akira suddenly slammed both hands onto the table, leaning forward as his voice rang out with absolute, unshakable authority. "I still have billions of Rio in reserves, and I will pour every single coin I have into an advertising campaign the likes of which Konoha has never seen," Akira declared, his Sharingan blazing in the dim light. "I will make sure the village
villagers see a glorious Uchiha poster on every street corner, every wall, and every storefront, I will buy the spokespersons. I will buy the neutral jonin. I will make sure that everywhere these ninjas go, all they hear, see, and talk about is an Uchiha Hokage. Slowly, Akira turned his gaze toward the window, his eyes locking under the distant stone faces of the Hokage monument. His expression turned ice-cold and endlessly calculating.
Hiruzen wanted a war. Fine, Akira whispered, his voice carrying a dark, chilling promise. Let's show him how a war is really played without shedding a single drop of blood. But I promise you, this is going to hurt him far worse.
If you enjoyed this original story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment if you want to see what happens next. There are many more stories waiting for you on my channel. Go check them out. Your support means everything, and it keeps me motivated to create more epic content like this. See you in the next one.